Okay, welcome to Sprint 122. Let's get started. So I'll go through the statistics. Carol will do the community update. Martin P. will do the UI. Providers will be Dan Berger. Automate will be Tina. Platform Joe V. And Martin P. has a second appearance on API. Okay, so we had 321 PRs merged across 144 repos. The repos increased by 32. That was after speaking with Jason Fry and he asked me to add some that weren't included after some time. So as you can see, it didn't really change the numbers that much. But anyway, there's the three top repos with PRs merged. And here we can see again, the numbers didn't go sky high just because we added those repos into the numbers. They just went up slightly. So, and the same for here. Here's the PRs by label. And Mark, can you mute that? Okay, sorry. And here's the health report, and you can see there was not much movement here. The only one was the VMware providers with the code smells went up a little bit, but other than that, everything is not much flux. And over to Carol.
Hi, hello from Brno. I'm here with David. And so for community update, we first have a update to 2 blog posts on ManageIQ authentication by Joe. He added some improved SAML setup, and troubleshooting. So the links for the updated blog posts are there. And then we also have some updates to the website, including removing the OVA downloads for OVIRT and Rev. Now only QC2 is supported. And removing the Docker file as the website no longer runs Docker container, as well as adding Vagrant download for the nightly builds. For the nightly builds, because they're not uploaded to Vagrant Cloud, they're just directly linked to releases.manageiq.org. All right, that's all for this week's update. Next slide, please. Thanks.
Okay, so in the
There we go.
Okay, so in the UI, we had a number of updates. 41 bugs were fixed. 17 bugs were fixed, 6 enhancements, and a number of technical debt and refactoring and cleanups. Some examples: a refresh button was added to the Ansible Tower Jobs page. We added add provider to list view on the infra host page and infra data stores. And we also converted part of the cloud and infra provider dashboards to React, which was a prerequisite for adding a core icon to that part, because those components are not available, were not available in Patternfly, so we had to re-implement part of it. So we also made automate domains and providers clickable from the list displayed through tenancy relationships. And we merged the second part of the toolbar rewrite to React. The previous sprint, we merged the part into React UI components, and in this sprint, we finally are actually using this in the UI. Convert migration plans in progress cards view was converted in the list view table. From the bugs that were fixed, an error on cloud providers dashboard was fixed, provider validation, tagging for editing groups and provisioning screens, and too low Z-index on data-driven select menu was fixed. We also allow resetting changes while editing zones password or verifying password fields. That's all from the UI.
And over to Dan Berger.
This is Dan covering for Adam this time. Looks like we had several changes on the Azure Stack side. So they're now collecting resource groups for networks, network ports, and security groups. For those who may have forgotten, Azure pretty much puts all resources, real and virtual, into resource groups, and we'll have that information. And they added targeted refresh resource groups, as well as an event target parser that will trigger for certain events caused by certain resource group related events. They also added the DDF parameters and verified credentials here. And as you can see at the bottom, we added it for several other providers. That was part of the continuing effort to create a more formal and structured credential verification interface. I think Adam talked about this last time. This is just continuing. I think there's still a few more left, but we're on our way to making things nicer so that you can't add a provider through the API without verification anymore. On Kubernetes and OpenShift, it's now only graph refresh. All other types of refresh are right out. On the VMware side, couple PRs here. The VMware now adds the firmware type and adds support for provisioning VMs to an NSX network. And I don't know that much about it, so I'm just going to tell you what James told me, which is that these two PRs are to tell if a LAN is coming from an NSX switch and use a different backing for it. Without that change, the provision would fail because vSphere would reject the assignment due to the wrong backing. And that is it for providers.
Thanks, Dan. Good morning. We had 16 PRs merged this sprint. Lucy changed the orchestration template runner default timeout value from 10 to 100 minutes to resolve a timeout issue in orchestration stack provisioning. Lucy renamed the service object column name from display to visible to avoid conflicts with the kernel display method. LJ cleaned up some deprecation warnings and spec tests. Patrick modified the ManageIQ domain best fit least utilized placement methods to be RBAC enabled. He recently made similar changes to the Red Hat domain. Manka from XLabs, a first-time contributor, added Azure Stack event instances to trigger targeted refreshes. Thank you, Manka, for your contribution. Fabian added a 1-minute retry interval to the VM check transformed method for the Hammer release. Drew added user information to the API call for widget generation. As part of the ongoing effort to deprecate the find by methods, Jay modified a few automate methods that were using the find by to use the new lookup by methods. That's it for automate. Next slide, and over to Joe.
Thank you, Tina. This sprint 38 PRs were merged across the platform space. Starting with enhancements, Libar contributed one by avoiding using raw SQL conditions for where in the hardware model. Brandon made an enhancement to simplify how the devel files are served, allowing us to remove a web server that was sitting in front of the content delivery network. He also made an enhancement to allow support for both ManageIQ.org and www.manageiq.org. And Keenan made performance enhancements by changing the number of tables in our queries. For bugs, Nick L. fixed an issue that caused embedded Ansible servers failures when Python modules were not available. Brandon fixed a bug where the network interface would fail to come up after reboots on RHEL 8 based appliances configured with a static IPv4 address. And Keenan fixed a schedule settings bug. Joe R. Keenan and Dan made some improvements to our automated test environment by updating and correcting the versions of FactoryBot, RSpec, and loggers. Next slide, please. For technical debt and refactoring, Keenan, Joe R., and Libar contributed some changes to remove deprecation warnings, also as Tina had mentioned. Libar addressed some technical debt, including moving the method sent tenant from group from the authentication model to the ownership mixin. And he also removed the inclusion of the ownership mixin from the service mixin. Keenan also contributed multiple refactoring improvements to Active Directory. And lastly, the next slide, please. I won't describe each one of these. I'll just state that Keenan, Julian, and Joe R. contributed a lot of improvements to the Rails 5.2 upgrade effort. And I listed all of the PRs here, but individually they're not so interesting. So that's it for the platform space, and on to Martin for the rest of the story.
API. Okay, so in the API we had two enhancements in this sprint. One was done by Arif, and it was for migration UI, and this adds some constraints for parameters in the request. Next slide, please. The second enhancement is by David H., which is on the path of our effort to convert the provider forms to use the API and also convert it to React. So what we were missing is a way to verify credentials when adding providers through the API. So this was added. And see an example of the code. That's all from me. Next slide.
Okay, that is the end of the sprint review. So the next one will be in 2 weeks on October 30th. We'll see you there.